Alright, so now that I've got this deer all processed and all my roasts and steaks and shanks, all that stuff is put in the freezer, ready to go, I'm left with my grind pile. So you can see I've got a pretty full tote here, clean trimmed red meat. And before I start grinding on this, I'm gonna go ahead and put this in the freezer for a couple hours, probably 2-3 hours, cover it up. And what I really want to do is get this meat cold, really cold. The colder it is going through your grinder, I don't care if you have a larger grinder like this one or a small grinder. I know people even use KitchenAid mixers with a grinding attachment. The colder this meat is going through any grinder, the better results you're going to have. It's going to move through the grinder much quicker, it's going to cut more efficiently, and you're not going to get gummed up in your blade up front here. So that's the next step. I'm going to go ahead and do that. When I come back, we will start grinding. We're going to run through a coarse plate, which is about 1/4 inch holes, and then after I grind it that first time, I'm going to run it back through with an 1/8 inch plate, and that'll give us a nice fine grind that makes a wonderful burger. So stay tuned, we'll be right back. Alright, so we're back. I've taken this meat out of the freezer. I've had it in there for a couple hours in this tote, and it's kind of getting firm on the top, and probably the same on the bottom. But this is nice and cold now. This is going to go through this grinder really well, really efficiently. And what I've done here to set up a little bit is, so I'm just using a bench that I built a few years ago. One thing that I've been doing lately, it's kind of a funny tip, but this is nothing more than a vinyl roll-up blind, you know, from Home Depot or whatever. And I just roll that out. It's vinyl, and it gives me a nice clean work surface. I can wipe it down with bleach when I'm done and roll it up and use it again the next year. So if you're looking for a cheap, inexpensive way to kind of make a meat cutting area, that works really well. Also, I'm using a couple of these totes. When you're doing larger amounts of burger, having totes is really helpful, because not only do you have a nice, you know, sizable container to work with, but if you need to put it in the fridge or put it in the freezer, you can do that directly in the tote. You're not trying to jockey around in a bunch of smaller containers. So I'm using a 1-horse grinder here from Cabela's. I've been using this grinder for a long time. It's been great. It just motors right through burger. Before I get started, I like to put just a light coating of mineral oil on the screw here, and then here's that my blade was left in there. So then next goes your blade, cutting blade, and then as I said earlier, I'm going to use the 1/4 inch holes, the larger plate for a coarse grind. Get this all set up. You don't want to get this too tight, it's kind of hand tight. The other thing I'm doing is I'm using a foot pedal, and this foot pedal is nice because it allows me to operate the grinder with my foot, and then keeps both my hands free. Also, I would say, from a safety standpoint, when you're using a larger grinder like this, use the push stick that they give you or something else. Don't stick your fingers down in here for obvious reasons. You might not want to serve up your hand to somebody. So what I'm going to do then is just move this around a little bit so I can start filling this thing up. What I like to do is fill up my hopper here with some meat. And again, I've cut most of this. Knowing I'm using this grinder, I can use larger pieces, but you know, I usually shoot for like 2-inch chunks. And a lot of the way I grind, or a lot of the way I trim, I end up with a lot of really small pieces anyway, because I'm pretty meticulous about it. But this grinder will handle pretty large pieces of meat. Smaller grinders, you're going to want to use a lot smaller cubes of meat. You know, this is about 1.5 it'll go right through here. So I'm gonna get started, show you how easy this is. Load up my hopper here a little bit. Again, I got a foot pedal, so I'm able just to push down with my foot. And if I need to stop, just take my foot off the pedal. So I'm just going to work this down through. You can see that meat's coming right on out of there. Nice coarse grind. Now if you're doing chili, if you want to grind some of this for chili, or you want a little coarser grind, you don't have to run this back through a second time. You can just go once through, especially if you've done a good job trimming your meat. You shouldn't have a lot of chewy stuff in there, gristle, silver skin, what have you. So this makes a really nice chili grind, just like that. So this was 27 pounds. I measured it out, weighed it out on my scale. It's 27 pounds of trimmed red meat. I'm not adding anything to it. Some people like to add beef suet, or some people add pork fat as a binder. I find that, you know, wild game is lean, and you got to be careful not to dry it out when you're cooking, but I haven't found a need anymore to add any fat to my game. I actually prefer it just straight red meat, and I'm not, you know, introducing anything new into it. It's just wild game, pure and simple. Reload my hopper here. Some of this on the bottom is pretty frozen, which is great because it helps grind. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead, I'll just finish running this out, and then I'll cut the video here, and we'll come back, and I'll change out that plate, and we'll start doing the fine finish grind on this. Alright, so stay tuned. Alright, so we finished our coarse grind on the 1/4 inch plate, and I swapped it out now for the 1/8 inch plate, which is going to do our finish grind. I cleaned out the tube here, make sure everything was out of there and clean. The other thing I'm going to do is, this is a collar that's basically an ice pack, and what's nice about this is you can put this on the grinder and it will keep that nice and cold in there. Just another thing you can do to ensure that your meat stays nice and cold, because that's how you get the best grind. Alright, so we're going to move this out, move a new tub in here. Alright, same deal. We're just going to fill up the hopper here. This meat is still ice cold, which is what we want. Now, I'll say on the second grind, the first grind, the texture of the meat kind of pulls itself into the auger. But with a ground product, we've already ground this once, it's gonna need some pressure to push it through. Yeah, it will still auger feed through, but you're gonna need to keep kind of some downward pressure on your push stick here to keep it moving. That's again why this ice pack helps, because it keeps everything really cold, keeps it moving through. So here we go. So when you see it coming out here, you're gonna notice this is gonna look like what you see at the grocery store, right? It's gonna be a really nice fine grind, very smooth consistency, and it's really pretty much the best burger product you can have right here. So what we're going to do after this is, as soon as I'm finished grinding this through the second time here, I'm going to do another video on how I wrap burger, and just the process that I use to do that. Works really well, keeps in the freezer a long time. One thing I'll note is when you have done your burger this way with no additives or anything like that, no fat, no suet, what you're able to do is take this clean red meat, this burger, and now you've got a base for pepperoni sticks, summer sausage, all sorts of other products that you can make even after it's been frozen. So this is just a great base product to work with. Makes great hamburger patties as it is. And yeah, I mean, I use it for sausage, I use it for pepperoni sticks. You can do ground jerky if you have a jerky shooter or an attachment that allows you to use ground meat. Works great for that. So I'm gonna go ahead and finish grinding this up, and then we'll move on to wrapping.